I'm just curious. Your ideal focus seems to be problem solving for world issues, and perhaps personal issues in communities. I'm wondering why you looked specifically into the area of biomimicry, including this, and not just generally solutions as a whole.
Excellent question. Yeah. So the question, as I understood it, was since my focus is on problem solving, why have I chosen biomimicry?
Well, not exactly. Specifically biomimicry, and not problem-solving apparatuses as a whole.
Okay, so thanks for the question. So my background is in mediation, and I've mediators get in the middle of problems. I tend to do kind of small potatoes mediation. That's not a technical term, but it means that I don't tend to get into like big things like the school strike or something like that. And worked in a lot of arenas like business and families and school problems and things like that. And so in mediation you work with people's interests, which means that you work with people's needs, what's most important to them, not so much what they want, the solutions they want, but what are the needs you're answering for. And a few years ago I came across biomimicry, which takes problems and then looks at nature's 3.8 billion years of creating life and says, wow, there's probably some genius there. Since humans have only been here for 200,000 years and we use every element on the periodic table, nature has been designing life for 3.8 billion years and only uses 20 elements on the periodic table. Maybe there's something we can learn there in terms of meshing our natural and industrial systems. And since we have quite some big problems with our industrial systems working against our natural systems, by that I mean our factories are spewing out a bunch of stuff that isn't circulating in the environment very well, and we've got problems like climate change. Biomimicry, to me, offers a lot of kind of solution-focused ways of getting ourselves out of this mess in this short amount of time that we have. Yes?
How do you work to be impartial as a mediator? Like, for example, if you have personal relations to someone, but the law or you, like, if you look at it rationally, you need to face, it looks like somebody needs more of your favor, but you personally feel empathy for the other person. How do you deal with, because dealing with that is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, so being neutral is very difficult, and kind of the question behind your question that I hear is also how other people see you as neutral or impartial. So those are two different things. So I might feel neutral between the two of you, but you might feel differently about me because we're both female. So you might automatically think that I would side with you. So the perception of whether you're neutral is a whole nother layer. But how do I stay in neutral? For me, the kind of mediation that I practice is that I don't give any solutions or offer any advice, which means I'm not the expert on the problem, you are, which means that I don't have to get all wrapped up in the content or the personalities, because I'm just going to try to create a process so you can have a better conversation and negotiate in your best interest, solve your own problem to the best of your ability. And so I wouldn't say it's easy to stay in neutral, and you do have to do a lot of work as a mediator, knowing what kind of things are going to throw you off, what kind of things are going to make you like some people more than other people, so that you can watch yourself and make sure that you stay in neutral. Your question is an excellent one. It's a big one, and it's not the kind of thing that you can learn one day and then do for the rest of your life. You have to keep watching yourself.
And isn't it better, like, for example, I totally related to the subject of feeling neutral. This summer I was practicing feeling empathy for everybody in this world, trying to look at problems at history in different ways, all those nefarious leaders in history trying to look at it as a rational way, trying to feel empathy with both.
Yeah.
Is it, if you're feeling the same empathy for both? Is it the same as being a neutral position? For example, when I started looking at Martin Shkreli with the medicine crisis, I started trying to look at his points.
So I think it's less, just to cut you off, but I think I know where you're going. I think it's less important to how I feel about both people, and more important if I can understand what it is they need and if I can help them work towards that. So how I feel at the end of the day, it's really not going to help them. What I think at the end of the day, also not going to help them. Since I'm not the expert they are, it's more about can I help them understand themselves better so that they can get to work solving the problem.
There's a question right here. How are you living your dream?
How am I? Oh, see, that's a good question. There are lots of good questions. So I'm living my dream at the moment by studying biomimicry, because I was saying to people a couple years ago, yeah, if I ever won the lottery, that's what I would do. And then after hearing myself say that about 20 times, I thought, maybe I better like figure out a way to do this rather than waiting for my life to unfold. You know, because it is quite expensive, and I have older kids in school, so, but yeah, living on Vancouver Island's not bad either, and yeah, having good friends. I mean, I think that's really important for everybody, is to find something in every day that is something to look forward to. I think the minute that you decide you can't live your dreams is the minute you start to distance yourself from the day. Like, it's not a very good feeling. I hung out there for a little while and it just doesn't really, it turns you into a moaner. Can't do that. But if you, one of my favorite phrases, argue for your limits and they're yours. So if you hang out in that place of limits, that's where you'll be.
What we also encourage you to do, which we wrote down on the sheet, is write down, when you hear a good idea, make a note of it. See if you at least come up with 2 ideas from these 15 minutes. Maybe you like that last one. Argue for your limits and you will get it. Who's next? Right here. We happen to have another question.
Sorry, I'm distracted.
Okay.
When you lost sight of what was important to you, what motivated you to start again?
I think I just got sick of myself. I don't know if you've ever felt that, and I notice it a lot in conflict. Like, sometimes you have to hang out in a stuck place for quite a while before you get unstuck. But part of the thing that unsticks you is that people get tired of listening to you and you get tired of hearing yourself. Or you just get tired, or some kind of challenge throws you into a situation of questioning your life, and then you got to really think about those questions. So it's different things all the time that give me the guts to go after something new. But I am kind of a person who tends to go after the things I don't know anything about, and so I think I'm kind of bent that way. Maybe I was lucky enough to have people around me who went after their dreams a lot. Did that answer your question? Yes.
Have you ever been mediating a conflict and you've had to remove yourself from it because you feel too attached?
Repeat.
Have I ever mediated a conflict and had to remove myself because I felt too attached?
To either side or...
To either side.
Or
I once pulled a fast one a couple of years ago where I got offered to mediate in the oil and gas industry. And I thought, oh, I should do this. It's not my dream job, but I should do this because there's money in it and it's right in Victoria. And as I sat with that should do this, I decided that the last thing I wanted to do was let the oil and gas industry, help the oil and gas industry solve their problems. I rather thought if they did have problems, they should feel them, and then maybe it would kick them into some other kind of way. Anyway, I decided it wasn't for me, and so the morning before the first meeting, I called up and said I had a conflict of interest, which I really didn't. I didn't know anyone, but it was more just the subject matter involved. But I felt quite badly about, I'd had 5 days to think about it, but it took me until the day before to realize that I just wasn't going to be that much help because I had all these biases going on about the subject. And that's just my own stuff. I don't expect you all to agree with me. But it was just like, where do I want to put my energies? Not in oil and gas today.
How did you follow through with your dreams?
An example.
An example. On the biomimicry one, I was humming and hawing about, that I shouldn't spend the money and that I should just be a grown-up and pay the mortgage and do the stuff that needs to be done. And like life was getting pretty boring pretty fast. And I was feeling more and more practical and responsible and yada, yada, yada. And then this thing came across my computer and it said like 1 week in Costa Rica, biomimicry. And I thought, I've never been to Costa Rica. It's only this much money. It's not a huge commitment. Maybe I'll try it, So experimentation is a great way to test whether it's your dream. And I told myself if, by the end of that week, it was over my head or it wasn't for me, I had only spent this much money, it was only a week. So sometimes putting your toe in the water of a dream is a good half step.
Okay, and could you also repeat the quote you said, argue for your limits?
And they're yours.
Okay, thank you.
Was it you? Yes?
Okay. So humans are fundamentally natural as we appear within nature. Searching for
Yeah.
problems in nature is
Yeah.
a completely logical step.
Yeah.
But however, I don't think it could be argued that there aren't problems that are uniquely human, like industry, like technology. And I'm wondering, have you ever found a problem that biomimicry may not? Sorry, let me try again. Have you ever experienced a problem for which biomimicry may not have been the best approach, and perhaps it wasn't applicable in the context?
I hope I do someday. Like I'm fairly new in the field. The field is about 20 years old and I'm only about a year and a half into it. The problems that are the most difficult to solve with biomimicry, because you can't just, is everyone familiar with the term greenwashing? Where you try to say something is environmentally friendly by using a couple words that mean two things and, So you can't greenwash with biomimicry, and there has to be a payoff back to nature. So, so the most difficult ones are kind of the arena I'm in, which is called social innovation. And with social innovation, if you're looking at how does nature solve, let's say, problems of bullying or something like this, or a bigger problem, there's been a lot of murders of transgender people in the States since January. So how does nature solve, protect the vulnerable or something like this? You have to be very clear about your examples, and you have to understand it's usually an ecosystem example that you're learning from. So those are complicated. It's difficult to look outside and think, oh, I know how that works. It's very complicated.
And if I may ask a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
Can we not appreciate it, but we have a short time. Anybody got a fresh question? Thank you. Just we're trying to spread it around. There's one over here.
Go to somebody who hasn't asked a question. Dan,
Oh, right
go.
here. Yes.
Reading over your biography here, you've been all over the world and have worked in many different diverse fields. So my question for you would be, when you go to work in somewhere kind of foreign, or you just go into a totally new field like what you've done, what challenges do you face with just learning something totally new, and how do you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge is feeling stupid. Like on the one hand, beginner's mind is a great place to be, because you're not putting all your own assumptions on top of something. You're not saying, oh, I know how this works, and just like if your friend has a problem and you've had something similar, at some point you stop listening to your friend and you start putting your own experience and deciding and suddenly you're into advice 2 seconds later, and it's actually not that helpful to your friend. So having a beginner's mind and being wide open is a wonderful thing if you can stay in that place and not feel stupid. Like right now, if I was a biologist and a chemist and a physicist, I would be thrilled. And every time I meet one of them, I'm like, oh, you're awesome. But I think that's the biggest challenge, is hanging out and knowing that beginner's mind is a helpful thing, and doing enough research so that you're not holding the process back.
And then just kind of mitigating that challenge, just keeping an open mind to things?
And listening really well, paying attention to who is in the room. which I'm lucky in my line of work. I'm always looking at everybody as an expert anyway, not myself. So the other thing I like about biomimicry is that now all my friends who are all in different lines of work are all experts in things. So I can use my friends to help think things through. Learning from a group and knowing that there's wisdom in a crowd, I think, is the way that you get past it.
Awesome, thank you.
Being a good listener. And you had a question before, even though I see your hand, I'm trying to follow Christopher's rules.
I did.
Why don't you ask that and then come back?
Have you become who you imagined yourself to be, like when you were younger?
That's a really good, have I become who I imagined myself to be? So when I was 15, and I don't know, are you guys 17 or 16? Okay, when I was 15 or 16, I thought I was going to be a movie director. My cousin is actually a movie director now, so he kind of stole my dream. But that's awesome. Other people end up doing things that, and you can live in their experiences. And the funny thing is too, that after you reach a certain age, you always feel the same age inside, which is a weird thing. You look in the mirror and it's not who you, so am I who I imagine myself to be? I don't know if I ever had any really concrete ideas about who I was going to be. I've definitely surprised myself. And the one thing that I like about getting older, I mean, whatever, it's the function of the way we are, but the one thing that amazes me about being older is that the longer you live, the more things you can learn about. And so if you can remember them all, there is such a thing as, well, I want to say wisdom, except that I don't take it away from, I think a 3-year-old can be wise. So I'm not saying that wisdom belongs to older people, but I'm just saying it's amazing how much you can learn about if you live a long time. That doesn't answer your question, but I don't think I knew who I was going to be. Okay.
This is the last question coming up. So who's got it?
Anybody who has not asked a question will ask a question?
I did. It's good.
Do you have a question?
It's good.
That's his comment.
Okay, it's good. Awesome.
Last.
Is there anyone or anything that inspires you?
Yeah, I mean, besides the flaky answer of everyone and everything, you know, when you find people who are doing things that resonate with you, I always try to remember those people when I get up in the morning, because sometimes I get up in the morning and, you know, fall into this rut of, I don't know, just kind of trudging through the day. But if I remember that I'm getting up with awesome people all over the world who are doing awesome things, then it's easier to feel connected and reach a little higher. Like today, I've got to go home after this wonderful time. Thank you very much for letting me into your classroom. And like push paper for 3 hours. I just have to push paper for 3 hours. And it's a bit of a slog, but if I connect to the bigger reason of why I'm doing it and, you know, what I'm gonna get to after that that's gonna be more inspiring, then, so specific people, I don't wanna be political in this room, but Elizabeth May, since you're going there, waking up to Elizabeth May in my riding every morning instead of ribbon cutting pictures from the previous politician is awesome. Janine Benyus, who started the term Biomimicry and is working with huge companies all over the world to bring that about. So a really good example is they looked at shark skin because it doesn't collect barnacles. And they wanted something for boats that would stop it, you know, stop things sticking to it. And when they clean boats, there's a huge environmental difficulty. And so they looked at shark skin, and if you were crazy enough to pet a shark, you would find that it's actually very rough. Things don't stick to shark skin, so they made a paint that now they can paint boats with so that stuff doesn't stick to it. There's a huge payoff for people because there's all these, you know, costs and labor that they don't have to do. But for the environment, all that scraping things down and toxic cleaning agents, you can imagine, right? It just changes the world. So Janine Benyus is another one. So lots of people, lots of things. And all my friends too who helped me learn. I really think the people around you are what helps you, and throwing kindness and good listening forward really makes a difference. Like, the only thing that's ever helped me is people who gave me the time to figure out what was going on, or gave me a kind comment or something like that. So I think the wisdom of crowds is kind of where it's at for me today.
Nice crowd.
Yeah, very nice crowd. What a feeling.